My platonic crush laughed in my face when I asked her out, and now she wants a date because I'm in shape, but her friends are harassing me, calling me shallow. I'm a 27-year-old man, and this whole situation has been bothering me for weeks. Back in college, I was what you'd call a typical bookworm. I spent most of my time studying because I wasn't naturally brilliant like some of my classmates. My parents always told me hard work was the only way to succeed in life, so I followed their advice to the letter. I had thick glasses, was skinny as a rail, and barely knew how to talk to people outside of class discussions. During my final year, I started spending more time with a group of classmates. There was a girl named Caroline in our study group. I developed what I thought was a serious crush on her for several months. Looking back, it was probably just because she was the first girl who was consistently kind to me. After our final exams, I mustered the courage to ask her out to dinner. I had rehearsed the words in my head for weeks. When I finally asked her, she laughed immediately. She caught herself and said she was just surprised, not mocking me, but the damage was done. I stood there as she explained she wasn't dating anyone at the time and wanted to focus on her career. I said it was fine and left. A few weeks later, I heard from mutual friends that she had been dating someone. At that point, I completely let go of any romantic thoughts about her. I graduated college and moved to another city for work. The pay was decent and I had my own small apartment. But the best thing that happened there was meeting Bill and Troy. Both were older than me and had been working there for about 10 years. They quickly took me under their wing. Bill noticed I ate lunch alone every day and invited me to join them. After a few weeks, Troy commented that I looked like I'd never set foot in a gym. Instead of being offended, I admitted it was true. They offered to take me to the gym with them and teach me the basics. That's when everything started to change for me. I began going to the gym 5 days a week. Bill helped me pick out clothes that actually fit instead of wearing everything 2 sizes too big. Troy taught me how to talk to people without sounding like I was reciting a textbook. They invited me to their dinners and introduced me to their friends. Over 2 years, I gained about 30 pounds of muscle. I switched to contact lenses and learned how to style my hair properly. More importantly, I learned how to have normal conversations with people. I dated a few women and had my first serious relationship with a coworker that lasted about 8 months. I was a completely different person from the shy, awkward guy who asked Caroline out in college. I was confident, had friends, and had relationship experience. I felt comfortable in my own skin like never before. Then my dad had a heart attack. He survived, but it was a wake-up call for our whole family. My mom was struggling to manage everything alone. My younger sister was still in high school, my older sister was busy with her own personal issues, and my brother was in college. I realized I wanted to be closer to help. I talked to my boss about working remotely. Since I'd done good work for 2 years, they agreed I could work from home as long as I returned to the office every 3 months for meetings. I found a nice apartment in my hometown and moved back. The first few months were quiet. I helped my parents with finances and drove my sister to her activities when needed. I joined a local gym and made some new friends there. That's when I ran into Caroline at the grocery store. She looked almost exactly the same as she did in college. She was pushing a cart with a 2-year-old boy sitting in it. We chatted briefly. She told me she had a son and was working. She mentioned she was single and seemed to be doing well. The conversation was polite but short, and I didn't think much of it afterward. A few weeks later, I went to a birthday party for one of my old college friends. Caroline was there with some other people from our old study group. I was talking to someone when she approached me and asked when I was going to ask her out again. The question caught me completely off guard. I told her honestly that it hadn't even crossed my mind. She seemed shocked and asked why not. Seeing that she was getting upset, I tried to be clear. I told her I wasn't interested and started to walk away. She followed me and demanded an explanation. She said I'd been interested in her years ago, so she wanted to know what had changed. I explained that her lie about not dating anyone back then had made me move on completely. I thought that would end it. Instead, she got defensive and said any normal person would have gotten over something so small. Then she accused me of not wanting to date her because she had a kid, saying I was judging her for being a single mom and that I'd become shallow since getting in shape. I left without responding because I could see the conversation wasn't going anywhere productive. Several people at the party had overheard parts of our argument, and it was turning into a spectacle. The next day I started getting text messages from her friends. Apparently, Caroline had told them I'd been rude to her and implied that I thought I was better than her now. Some messages were angry, insulting me. Others tried to convince me to give her a chance because she was a good person going through a tough time. My phone didn't stop buzzing for 3 days. I showed the messages to Bill and Troy when I called them for advice. They told me I didn't owe Caroline or her friends anything and that they were out of line for harassing me. But when I talked to my old college friends, most thought I should at least go out with her once to be nice. My younger brother said the same when I asked him. My older sister was the only one who told me to trust my own judgment. She said I knew best what I wanted and shouldn't let others pressure me into dating someone. But the messages kept coming. Caroline's friends were relentless. They sent long paragraphs about how Caroline was a great mom and deserved someone who appreciated her. They shared stories about how hard it is for single moms to date. The whole situation was making me anxious and stressed. I couldn't focus on work and was avoiding going out because I was afraid of running into Caroline or her friends around town. I'd moved back home to help my family and have a quiet life, but instead I was dealing with more drama than ever. I started thinking maybe I should just go out with her once to make it all stop. But then I remembered how arrogant she'd been at the party, assuming I'd automatically be interested just because my appearance had changed. The shy guy who asked her out in college no longer existed. But she seemed to think I owed her something for who I used to be. This has been going on for a week, constant messages and calls from new numbers and accounts, and I don't know what to do. No matter how much I block, these people don't stop. Update 1. A few weeks ago, I posted about my college crush, Caroline, who expected me to ask her out again after years, and how her friends started harassing me when I said no. Many people suggested I talk to her directly to clear things up, so that's what I did. I texted Caroline, making it clear it wasn't a date, just a chance to sort things out so her friends would stop contacting me. She responded in less than an hour, agreeing and apologizing for the chaos. She said she thought it was a good idea to clear the air. She arrived about 15 minutes late because she had trouble finding a last-minute babysitter. She mentioned that her son's father usually takes him on weekends, but he'd had food poisoning. That's when I learned Caroline and her son's father actually have a good co-parenting relationship. She explained they dated for about a year after college but realized they weren't compatible as a couple. They tried to make it work when she got pregnant, but it became clear they were better as friends and co-parents. He lived about 10 minutes away and took their son on alternate weekends and one evening during the week. This was completely different from the image I had of her as a struggling single mom. She seemed to have a solid support system and was managing well on her own. I started explaining why the past few weeks had been stressful for me and that, while I was sorry she felt hurt by my response at the party, I didn't regret saying no. But she interrupted before I could finish. She apologized sincerely for her behavior at the party and for her friends contacting me. She said she'd asked them to stop after I reached out to meet. She seemed genuinely embarrassed about the whole situation. Then she said something that put everything in context. The week before the party, she'd gone on a few dates with a guy she met on a dating app. Everything seemed fine until she mentioned she had a son. He immediately called her damaged goods and said he didn't date women with baggage. He got up and left her alone at the restaurant. She said when I rejected her at the party, her first thought was that it was happening again. She got defensive and assumed I was judging her the same way that guy did. She knew it wasn't fair to take it out on me but was still shaken by that experience. She also explained why she wanted to date me in the first place. It wasn't just about how I looked now, though she admitted the physical change caught her attention. She said she'd been watching me at the party and noticed how comfortable and confident I seemed compared to college. She found it attractive to see someone who had clearly grown and changed positively. We talked about what happened in college. She brought up her laugh when I asked her out and reiterated it was out of surprise, not mockery. She asked if I was still hurt that she'd lied about not dating anyone. I told her I was over it, but that's what made me stop thinking of her romantically. We talked for a while about various things. By the end, we were laughing about how poorly we handled the party situation. She said she was embarrassed for assuming I was still interested and understood why her forwardness caught me off guard. She said her friends meant well but could be overly protective. She promised they wouldn't contact me again. As we parted, she said she hoped we could be cordial if we ran into each other around town. I agreed that would be nice. She also said maybe if our situations were different in the future, we could reconsider dating, but she understood neither of us wanted that now. I thought it was a mature way to handle it. We weren't making promises or commitments, just acknowledging that people and circumstances change over time. The harassment from her friends stopped completely after our meeting. I saw one of them at the gym a few days later and she actually apologized for the messages. She said Caroline had explained the situation and asked them to drop it. I felt much better after clearing things up with Caroline. But then something unexpected happened that made me question if I'd handled everything right. My 22-year-old brother came home from college for spring break about a week after my talk with Caroline. He'd already heard about the situation and wanted to know what happened. I told him the basics. He listened and then said he thought I was being too harsh. He pointed out that Caroline had apologized and explained her behavior, and she seemed genuinely sorry for how things went. He said most people would give someone a second chance after a conversation like that. Then he said something that really bothered me. He claimed our older sister had told him she thought I was holding a grudge from college and using it as an excuse not to date Caroline. According to him, our sister thought I was being immature about the whole thing, that I was confused because our older sister had been the one who told me to trust my judgment from the start. When I called her to ask about it, she said she never said anything like that to our brother. She was upset that he was stirring up drama and told me to ignore him. But my brother insisted she'd said those things during a phone call the previous week. He even described specific parts of the conversation, which seemed too detailed to be made up. My sister denied everything and said he was either misremembering or lying. This has created weird tension between my siblings, making family dinners awkward. I don't know why my brother is so invested in this. Both my older sister and I have asked him to drop it, but he brings it up whenever he can. Even my parents have told him to stop dominating conversations with this. I'd love to get more clarity, but I never get a straight answer from him. Update 2. About 2 weeks after my last update, I was at my parents' house for dinner when my brother brought up the topic again. This time, he said he thought I was afraid of commitment and was using the college rejection as an excuse to stay single and play the field. He claimed our older sister thought the same. My sister was right there and was visibly angry. She told him to stop putting words in her mouth, that none of it was true, and to drop it for good. They started arguing at the table, which made my parents uncomfortable. My mom asked them to let it go, but my brother kept pushing. Finally, my sister pulled out her phone and showed us her call log. She hadn't spoken to him on the phone in over 3 weeks, contradicting his claim of a recent conversation. There weren't even many texts between them, and most were her telling him to drop the topic or coordinating what to bring to our parents' house. That I asked him directly if he'd lied, and he admitted it. He said he thought I was making a mistake and that Caroline seemed perfect for me. He said all this was an attempt to help me see things clearly. My parents told him to leave early so we could have a peaceful night without his drama. The next day he came to my apartment to apologize. He said he genuinely thought I was making a mistake by not giving Caroline a chance and had tried to help in the wrong way. He apologized for lying and causing problems. I accepted his apology but made it clear that my love life was nobody's business and he needed to respect my decisions and stay out of it. He said he understood and promised to stay out of it from now on. Then I talked to Bill and Troy, not specifically about this, but it came up since it had been on my mind. They made me think maybe Caroline wasn't as sincere as she seemed during our meeting and that my brother might have been in contact with her. That got me thinking about the timeline of events. Caroline's friends started harassing me within 24 hours of the party incident. What exactly had she told them to make them so angry at me? I also thought about how quickly she responded to my message about meeting and how prepared she seemed with explanations for everything during our talk. I started wondering if her apology was completely sincere or if it was a strategic move to look good. Maybe she still hoped I'd change my mind about dating her, despite saying she understood my stance. Those thoughts bothered me, but I had no way to verify them without asking Caroline directly, and I doubted I'd get a genuine answer if she was as manipulative as she seemed. I remembered a mutual friend, more Caroline's friend than mine, who had stayed out of the drama. It was a long shot, but maybe I'd get honest answers from her. Well, I did get answers. She told me Caroline had been struggling with dating lately and seemed lonely. She also said Caroline had badmouthed me, hoping she'd react like her other friends, but she refused to get involved in the drama. She even told Caroline it wasn't fair to me, but Caroline didn't seem to understand or care. Unfortunately, I couldn't confirm if my brother had been in contact with Caroline. She didn't know anything about that. But I can't shake the feeling something's off. I don't understand why he's so invested in whether I date her, but I'm sure something strange is going on. Update 3. I hope you're ready for a wild update because my head's about to explode, and I don't know what'll come of this now that I'm writing it all down. I'm not promising it'll be free of typos. I'm just trying to make sense of everything. To start, a few days ago, I got a message from the mutual friend I mentioned in my last update. She had things to tell me, stuff she got from texting with Caroline. She went digging for more info because I had suspicions about my brother, and she wanted to help. I can't promise this won't get messy, but I'll keep it as clean as possible. Yes, my brother has been receiving sexual favors from Caroline. I have screenshots from her friend detailing, quite graphically, what Caroline has done with him and where. I won't go into details, but you can imagine. My brother's staying with my parents, so he hasn't brought her there, and Caroline didn't want to bring him to her place with her son. Neither has money for a motel. The worst part? They've been doing this so my brother would keep pressuring me to date her. Apparently, she promised to continue the favors if he could get me to go out with her. With this new info, besides thanking her friend, I went to talk to my parents. I wanted them to hear it from me first because they'd find out one way or another. I didn't have to show them the screenshots. They believed me, which I'm grateful for because the messages were pretty explicit. I also talked to my sisters before taking the next step. I tried to be reasonable with Caroline and my brother, tried to talk and reason so they'd stop, but I wasn't going to let this go on much longer. So, I posted the screenshots, slightly censored. I didn't want to risk getting the post deleted or my account blocked. Still up, getting comments and likes. Normal people see it for what it is, disgusting behavior from both of them. But some of Caroline's friends still think there's nothing wrong with it. They say I posted it because I'm jealous she was with my brother instead of me, ignoring that I have zero interest in her and that my brother was receiving favors to manipulate me into dating her. And of course, the idea of her cheating on me before we even had a date. At least the comments are handling them and I haven't had to do anything more. Caroline's been quiet, at least with me. Maybe she expected me to say something. My brother has tried talking to my parents to explain his side, but they told him to go back to college early or find somewhere else to stay. Maybe I should have had this talk with them when he was home, but I think I took the right path. I haven't spoken to him and don't plan to. If he wants to talk, I'm open to it, but I'm avoiding him because my conversation wouldn't exactly be verbal, if you catch my drift. I'd rather avoid legal trouble I can prevent. I'm not sure if sharing the screenshots could get me in trouble, but at least I have her friend's permission as long as they're not lies. Update 4. I didn't expect everything that happened, but I wasn't going to sit idly by with that information after Caroline got her friends to harass me and my brother planned to be with her if I agreed to a date. These are the consequences for them and I don't feel bad about it. The father of Caroline's son has requested primary custody. Until now, he only had him on weekends, but he's now asked for full-time custody, with Caroline limited to supervised visits. The judge granted it based on the screenshots I posted, citing her poor decision-making, exhibitionist behavior, and my lawsuit against her. Yes, I'll get to that. The judge concluded someone like her shouldn't be in charge of a child. My brother was expelled from college, where he had a couple of semesters left. The school used a moral conduct clause to justify it. He's tried appealing, citing student loans he still has to pay, but so far he hasn't succeeded, even with a lawyer. My parents haven't let him back home, so he got a job in the college town while waiting to re-enroll. I also sued Caroline for inciting her friends to publicly attack me. It wasn't a big lawsuit, just $1,800 in compensation. But it was enough for her son's father to gain primary custody. As for them, I didn't even have to hear from them. I only saw Caroline during the hearings. Neither contacted me, likely out of shame or to avoid worsening their cases. I don't know if they're still hooking up. My brother's been out of town for a while, though he could come back without us knowing. Honestly, I wouldn't care if they did as long as they don't use it to get to me. This is probably my final update. With my dad's health much better, I'll likely move back to my previous city to put this behind me. Edit: I don't think my brother managed to re-enroll at college. We would have heard. My younger sister still has some contact with him.